Welcome to Raised on MTV. We're raised on MTV, VHS tapes, and most importantly, scrambled porn. And we turned out fine, didn't we, Eric?
Oh yeah, just
Yes.
great. Thanks to the scrambled porn.
Yes. I am Monty Griffin, and with me is the Ringo Starr of the 1970s. That's right, I'm talking about Eric Swaney. Yes.
Now wait, you're talking about the Ringo Starr from the movie Caveman,
Amen. Zug Zug.
Zug Zug, right? Not from that band you like to talk about all the time.
Okay, so, Eric, on April 17th, 1970, um, Paul McCartney released an album, McCartney. But why did they release with the album?
Wings.
No, he released a press release that said this. Do you miss the other Beatles and George Martin? No. Assuming it is a very hit album, will you do another? Even if it is, I might. Are you planning a new album or single with the Beatles? No. Is an album a rest away from the Beatles or a start of a solo career? He says, time will tell.
Time will tell.
So is your break with the Beatles temporary or permanent due to personal differences or musical ones? Personal differences, business differences, musical differences, but most of all, I have a better time with my family. Temporary or permanent, I really don't know. Do you foresee a time when Lennon and McCartney becomes an active songwriting partnership again? No. So
This is devastating for you.
yes, but after this, it said the headlines were Paul leaves the Beatles. Did Paul say he
Wow.
was leaving? Did Paul say he was leaving the Beatles?
No, he never said that. In those
Never said
quotes, he
that.
never said he didn't. He just said he doesn't see himself recording with McCartney
Yeah.
again.
And so basically, John got mad because John quit earlier in September 1969, but everyone thought Paul quit. So, but there's two schools of thought here. Okay, Paul wrote that whole press release himself. He didn't ask. He wrote it out. He says he's
Mhm.
mad at the Beatles because the three Beatles because he wanted to release. He was told he can release this album on April 17th. Then he was told he had to wait a couple months because Let It Be was coming out and Ringo had an album coming out, and he got mad because he thought he was told, and he threw Ringo. He thought he was told he had the release date, and he threw Ringo out of his house because he disappeared for
Either
months, and he came back with an album.
Ringo was living in McCartney's house.
No, he came over there to be goodwill and brought a letter about.
Oh, okay. I was like, yeah,
He went over there to try to be goodwill, talk about him moving the album. They said Paul got so mad. He's like, "Get the fuck out of my house!"
wow.
The Ringo, the nicest one of all. Okay, people have said if Paul does not release that press release, that the Beatles might not have broken up. I have gone the I thought of that at first. That might be true, but now I'm going the other way that they would have broken up anyways.
I think they would have broken up anyways because John was done.
John was done, and the other thing you forget about, they were being managed by Alan Klein, the other three Beatles, not Paul. And Paul
Mhm.
saw Alan Klein stealing money from him, and he wanted to get Klein, but he couldn't. So
All right.
later on, so let's just say this press release doesn't happen. So everybody's going to think the Beatles were all together, but they were still fighting over money, all this stuff. And then what happened on December 31st, 1970?
You tell me. Tell
Paul
us.
sues the other three Beatles to break up.
Oh my God. Wow. The plot thickens.
And that lawsuit was like for 3 or 4 years. It finally gets resolved in 1974. There's video of Paul and George signing the breakup pictures. John was there, lives in New York. He wouldn't walk over there because he said his astrologer said not to come that day, and George and Paul were not happy. And then a month later, he signed the breakup papers at Disneyland with May Payne.
Wow. I remember when Motley Crue signed their breakup papers and said they were never going to tour again, but they
Yeah.
did, and they are.
Yes. Yes. So happy anniversary for Paul not leaving the Beatles, but I think even this thing was not released,
That's
press release. I think they were breaking up anyways.
yeah. That's a great story, Monty, because people always throw different reasons in there of why they break up. Yoko Ono, blah blah blah. Now it's this the press release. It's like they were headed that direction.
Yeah, it's more the
There's too
money
much.
thing that did it, and it was time for them. They all wanted to go their separate ways. George wanted to prove. Also, during that 1970 time, they're all making albums. Paul made his
Yeah,
album. George is making All Things Must Pass. John's making an album. Ringo's making an album. They just kind of wanted to spread their wings. If it wasn't for the money stuff, they might have gotten back in a few years because John, George, and Ringo were all kind of on each other's albums and all that. And Paul was away. And there's a great documentary about that right now, Man on the Run on Amazon, about Paul's years after breaking up with the Beatles and with Wings. If you get a chance, you should watch it. But Paul did not leave the Beatles. The Beatles were already broken up by John, and he would have sued him in December no matter what, anyways.
Yep. And also, Monty, you got to throw in there. You have to throw in there the fact that it's not the real Paul.
Oh yeah, that's right, because he died in 1968.
Yeah, it's the fake Paul, and he wants to get away.
Exactly. All right, Eric. Anything else on this?
No, I really enjoyed that, Monty. It's surprisingly enjoyed hearing about that because I did not know about that press release, and it is a great theory, and I like that you've taken a side.
I have taken a side.
Now,
Yes.
normally I would just take the other side and say, absolutely not, Monty, you're wrong, wrong, wrong. But I agree with you. That's not the reason.
All right, we will be talking about the Beatles later on about a controversy. No, about if they would have played Live Aid if there was a live, but we'll do that in a couple months.
Ooh, I got to think about that. Would they? Do you think? I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out later. We'll find out later. We'll talk about it later.
All right, for Eric Swaney, I'm Monty Griffin. See you next time on Raised on MTV. Bye bye.